The battle began at the edge of the solar system where Earth waited in terrified hope. Admiral Keiko watched from the Coalition command ship as the Void Swarm's main fleet emerged from the darkness between stars. What she saw made her understand why the predecessors had failed. The creatures weren't just large, they were wrong. They existed in too many dimensions at once, their forms shifting between states of matter that shouldn't be possible. The smallest ones were the size of battleships, their bodies made of condensed nothingness that ate light itself. The largest defied measurement, their presence warping space-time around them. All units, Captain Do-hyun's voice reached every awakened mind in the fleet. Remember what we learned. Don't try to destroy them. They can't be destroyed because they're not really alive. We have to heal them. The first wave of Coalition fighters, led by Lieutenant Nari, dove into the swarm of smaller entities. Her awakened pilots could see the creatures clearly now. They had once been living beings, transformed by eons of exposure to pure entropy. I can see faces in the darkness, Nari reported, her voice filled with sadness. These were people once. The Void Swarm doesn't just consume, it converts consciousness into tools of destruction. The awakened fighters engaged the enemy with weapons that fired concentrated creation instead of destruction. When the beam struck the void entities, they didn't explode. They screamed. For a moment, their original forms flickered through the darkness like ghosts trying to remember who they used to be. On the Dauntless, Engineer Soman coordinated the massive weapon systems that had been built from predecessor designs. Reality anchors activating, she reported, forcing the large entities to exist fully in our dimension. Space around the battle zone began to solidify as the reality anchors took effect. The huge void creatures found themselves trapped in normal physics for the first time in millions of years. They thrashed and roared, their voices heard across dimensions. Colonel Tae-hoon led the awakened Marines in the most dangerous mission of all, boarding actions against the void entities themselves. His soldiers could exist partially outside normal space, allowing them to walk on the surfaces of creatures made of living entropy. Contact, Tae-hoon reported as his team landed on something that might have once been a planet-sized creature. The entity's consciousness is buried deep inside layers of corrupted reality. We're going to have to dig. The awakened Marines moved across the creature's surface, their enhanced senses allowing them to navigate terrain that didn't follow normal rules. They found what they were looking for, a core of original consciousness, trapped and twisted by eons of being used as a weapon. It's in pain, Sergeant Kwan reported, his ability to sense thoughts picking up the creature's anguish. It remembers being something else. It wants to stop but can't control itself. Dr. Yuna, working from the medical bay of the Dauntless, had prepared for this moment. All awakened beings prepared to link consciousness. We're going to attempt the largest healing ever tried. Across the Coalition fleet, 200,000 awakened minds began to connect. Humans, Zephyrians, Vextar, Thornari, and dozens of other species joined their consciousness into one vast network of healing intention. Ambassador Thel, now a being of living light, served as one of the primary conduits. I can feel them, she said, her crystal voice echoing across the mental network. All the beings trapped inside these creatures. Millions of them, maybe billions, all crying out to remember who they used to be. The healing process began slowly. Awakened beings focused their enhanced abilities on restoring the original consciousness of the void entities. It was like performing surgery on reality itself. Delicate, dangerous, and requiring perfect coordination. Commander Wanho's hybrid ship, the Unity, moved through the battle zone serving as a mobile command center. His mixed crew of awakened and normal beings worked together perfectly, the awakened minds guiding while normal minds provided stability and focus. We're making progress, Wanho reported. 3 smaller entities have been restored to their original forms. They're actually helping us now, trying to heal their fellow creatures. But the process was taking too long. More void entities kept arriving from deep space, and some of the largest creatures were resisting the healing attempts. They had been weapons of entropy for so long that they barely remembered ever being anything else. Dr. Yunbi made a crucial discovery as she monitored the healing process. The entities are connected to each other through quantum entanglement. If we can heal the central intelligence that controls them all, the healing effect should spread through the entire swarm. Where is this central intelligence? Admiral Keiko asked. Captain Do-hyun consulted with the predecessor ghosts that only awakened minds could perceive. It's in the largest entity, the one approaching Earth now. It was once the predecessor equivalent of their home planet. Billions of awakened minds linked into one vast consciousness. The Void Swarm converted it into their command center. The entity he spoke of was approaching Earth like a moon made of compressed darkness. It was so large that its gravitational field was affecting Earth's tides. Worse, it was beginning to consume Earth's moon, turning the familiar silver orb into wisps of nothingness. All forces converge on the primary target, Do-hyun ordered. This is our only chance. The entire coalition fleet focused on the massive central entity. Awakened fighters darted around its surface like bright fireflies, their creation weapons carving paths through the condensed entropy. Reality anchors fired continuously, forcing the creature to maintain a stable form. Lieutenant Nari led a desperate assault on what sensors indicated was the creature's core. I can see it, she reported. There's something like a city buried deep inside. The architecture, it's beautiful. This was their capital world before it was corrupted. Colonel Tae-hoon's Marines landed on the creature's surface and began fighting their way toward the core. They faced defenses made of living darkness. Corrupted predecessor technology turned into weapons of unmaking. We're taking heavy casualties, Tae-hoon reported, but we're getting closer. I can feel the original consciousness stirring. It knows we're trying to help. The breakthrough came when Sergeant Kwan made direct contact with the buried intelligence at the creature's heart. His enhanced telepathic abilities allowed him to speak with the corrupted predecessor minds directly. They remember, Kwan announced to the entire fleet. They remember who they were before the corruption. They want to be healed, but they're afraid. They've been weapons of destruction for so long that they don't know how to be anything else. Dr. Yuna coordinated the final healing attempt. Every awakened being in the fleet linked their consciousness with the buried predecessor minds. It was a moment of perfect unity. Humans and aliens, awakened and normal, all working together to restore what had been lost. The effect was immediate and miraculous. The massive entity began to change, its form of compressed darkness shifting into something else. The consumed matter started to reverse its entropy, reforming into the original crystal cities and living gardens that had once covered the predecessor homeworld. But more than that, the healing spread through the quantum connections to every other void entity in the galaxy. One by one, the creatures of entropy remembered who they had been. They transformed from destroyers back into their original forms, beings of pure consciousness who had transcended physical existence millions of years ago. The battle ended not with explosions and death, but with joy and reunion. The restored predecessors reached out to thank the awakened beings who had saved them. They shared their knowledge freely, teaching the coalition species technologies that could heal damaged worlds and restore consumed stars. President Sujin, the first awakened human elected to lead the Galactic Coalition, stood before the restored predecessor council months later. Around them, the galaxy was healing. The Genesis Protocol had been activated successfully, bringing back worlds that had been consumed, restoring species that had been lost. What will you do now? Sujin asked the ancient beings who had become her teachers and friends. The predecessor spokesman, a consciousness that existed as pure thought, replied with concepts that touched her awakened mind directly. We will explore beyond this galaxy, searching for other regions consumed by entropy, and you will come with us when you are ready. Are we ready now? Not yet. But you will be. Humanity and its allies have shown something we predecessors never learned, that healing is more powerful than any weapon, that cooperation is stronger than individual transcendence, and that hope can overcome even the deepest corruption. Ambassador Kyung, another awakened human, was already making preparations for the next phase of galactic development. The coalition had evolved beyond anything the founders had imagined. Humans served as bridges between the various species, their unique combination of awakened abilities and essential humanity, making them natural leaders and coordinators. The galaxy now thrived under this new order. Awakened beings worked alongside normal ones, each contributing their unique abilities. Former void entities, now restored to their original consciousness, shared their knowledge of reality's deepest secrets. The various alien species contributed their own perspectives and capabilities. Admiral Keiko stood before the largest military gathering in galactic history. The coalition headquarters had been expanded to hold representatives from every species, every world that still existed. Fear filled the air like a thick cloud, but underneath it was something stronger: determination. 3 months, Keiko announced to the assembled leaders. That's how long we have before the Void Swarm's main fleet reaches the core worlds. 3 months to prepare for a war that will decide whether life continues to exist in our galaxy. Captain Do-hyun stepped forward, his awakened crew behind him. They all glowed with the soft blue light that marked their transformation. We've learned more about the awakening process. Dr. Yuna has found ways to make it safer, though we still can't eliminate all risks. Dr. Yuna activated a holographic display showing the genetic changes that happen during awakening. The process works differently for each species, but the results are similar. Enhanced physical abilities, direct interface with predecessor technology, and most importantly, the ability to exist partially outside normal space-time. Why is that important? Asked General Hyunwoo, who had just arrived from Earth with 1 million human volunteers for awakening. Because the Void Swarm entities exist partially outside our reality, Engineer Soman explained. Normal matter and energy pass right through them. Only awakened beings can touch them. The awakening process had been moved to dozens of ships across the Coalition fleet. Every day, thousands of beings went through the transformation chambers. Not all of them survived, but those who did gained incredible abilities. Commander Wonho had volunteered for one of the experimental hybrid awakenings. He was now the captain of the first coalition vessel designed by both human and alien awakened minds working together. His ship, the Unity, could phase through solid matter and travel faster than light without using hyperspace. The awakened crews are learning to work together in ways we never imagined, Wonho reported to the assembled leaders. Awakened Zephyrians can see through dimensions. Awakened Vextar can share tactical data instantly without using communications. Awakened Thornari can repair ships by growing new parts. Ambassador Thel, now a being of living light, flickered with colors of hope. My people who survived the awakening can phase through void entities to attack their core essence. We've destroyed 3 scout entities this way. But the reports weren't all good. Ambassador Crix buzzed sadly as he gave his report. The awakening process has killed 60% of Vextar volunteers. Our biology doesn't adapt as well as other species. But those who survive gain the ability to exist as pure consciousness. They can fight the Void Swarm on the same level it exists. Ambassador Groot's wooden form had become something beautiful and strange. His branches could reshape into any tool needed, and he could communicate with both living plants and mechanical systems. The Thornari who undergo awakening become bridges between organic life and predecessor technology. We can grow living ships that repair themselves and weapons that evolve to fight whatever they encounter. Dr. Yunbi, one of the awakened human researchers, made an exciting discovery. We've found that the awakening process can be extended to some degree to non-awakened beings. We can create hybrid crews where awakened beings enhance the abilities of normal ones. This breakthrough allowed them to upgrade entire fleets instead of just individual ships. Normal humans could pilot ships controlled by awakened minds. Regular Zephyrians could use weapons aimed by awakened consciousness. Standard Vextar could share data through awakened communication networks. Colonel Taehoon had been training the awakened ground forces. His Marines could now move faster than sound, survive in space without suits, and fight hand-to-hand with void entities. We've learned that physical contact with these creatures is possible if you exist partially outside normal space, he reported. But it requires perfect mental discipline. One moment of doubt and the entity can consume your consciousness. The most remarkable development came from Sergeant Quan, who had discovered he could communicate with the predecessor ghosts directly. They existed in the spaces between dimensions, and his awakened consciousness could reach them. The predecessors are teaching us their final weapons, Quan announced. Technologies they never had time to use against the Void Swarm. Planet crackers that can reshape entire worlds into weapons. Reality anchors that force the void entities to exist fully in our space, and something they call the Genesis Protocol. What's the Genesis Protocol? Admiral Keiko asked. Quan's glowing eyes grew distant as he communicated with beings that existed beyond physical form. It's a way to reverse what the Void Swarm does. Instead of consuming reality, it creates reality. It can bring back consumed worlds, restore eaten stars, even resurrect the consciousness of beings who have been devoured. The assembled leaders fell silent as they understood what this meant. It wasn't just about winning the war anymore. It was about undoing the damage that had already been done. But the Genesis Protocol came with a terrible cost. Captain Do-hyun explained what the predecessors had told him. Using it requires the combined consciousness of every awakened being in the galaxy. If we activate it at the wrong moment or without enough awakened minds, it will kill everyone who attempts to use it. Then we'll have to time it perfectly, Admiral Keiko said grimly. One chance to save everything or lose everything trying. The weeks that followed were filled with desperate preparation. Awakening centers worked around the clock, transforming volunteers from every species. The success rate improved as Dr. Yuna refined the process, but people still died every day trying to become something more than they were. Lieutenant Nari led squadrons of awakened pilots in new fighters that could exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. They could attack void entities from angles that didn't exist in normal space. It's like fighting in a dream, she told new pilots. You have to trust your instincts more than your instruments. Commander Jiho, still trapped between human and awakened forms, discovered he could serve as a bridge between normal and transformed minds. He became the coordinator for hybrid crews, allowing awakened and normal beings to work together perfectly. The Coalition's shipyards worked constantly, building vessels that combined the best of every species' technology with predecessor designs. Ships that could grow like plants, think like insects, shine like crystals, and dream like humans. As the final month approached, long-range sensors detected the approach of the Void Swarm's main fleet. What they saw defied imagination. Entities the size of moons moved in perfect formation, consuming everything in their path. Behind them came creatures so large they warped space around them just by existing. Final count, Admiral Keiko announced at the last strategy meeting. We have 200,000 awakened beings across all species, 2 million hybrid crew members, 5,000 ships equipped with predecessor technology, and one chance to save every living thing in the galaxy. Captain Do-hyun stood at the command station of the Dauntless, now the flagship of the largest fleet ever assembled. Around him, his awakened crew worked at stations that responded to thought rather than touch. Through the ship's enhanced sensors, he could see the enemy approaching. All units, he announced across the fleet-wide communication network, his voice reaching every awakened mind simultaneously. This is it. Everything we've worked for, everything we've sacrificed comes down to the next few hours. The Void Swarm has consumed countless galaxies over millions of years. Today that ends. The fleet moved toward the galactic core where the final battle would take place. Awakened beings from dozens of species prepared to fight creatures that existed to unmake reality itself. The fate of consciousness, of life, of existence itself hung in the balance. Outside the viewports of the Coalition ships, space began to darken as the Void Swarm's advance guard reached the inner galaxy. The final war for the survival of everything had begun. The first attack came without warning. The Zephyrian crystal world of Theros had been peaceful for 1,000 years. Its crystal inhabitants lived in harmony, their bodies reflecting the light of their twin suns in beautiful patterns. Then the darkness came. Ambassador Thel received the final transmission from her homeworld while sitting in the emergency coalition meeting. Her crystal body began flashing red with pain as she heard the voices of her people screaming. "The stars are going out," came the panicked voice from Theros. "Something is eating them. The darkness is spreading across our sky. It's beautiful and terrible," and the transmission ended in static. Within hours, the entire Theros system was gone. Not destroyed, simply gone as if it had never existed. Captain Do-hyun watched the readings on the Coalition's sensors with grim understanding. "This is how they always begin," he told Admiral Keiko. "They consume the outer worlds first, using the energy and matter to create more of themselves." The next attack hit the Vextar hive worlds. The insect-like aliens had built their colonies close together so they could share thoughts across space. But their connected minds became their weakness when the Void Swarm found them. Ambassador Crix collapsed in the middle of giving a speech about Coalition defense. His clicking voice turned into a scream of mental pain as thousands of Vextar minds were suddenly cut off from the hive network. "They're not just killing us," Crix buzzed weakly. "They're consuming our consciousness itself. The thoughts and memories of billions of my people are being eaten." Within the Coalition fleet, panic began to spread. Admiral Keiko tried to maintain order, but her captains were receiving reports that made no sense. Entire fleets were disappearing from sensors, not because they were destroyed, but because they simply stopped existing. "Admiral," Commander Hana said, her voice shaking, "the Thornari garden worlds just went dark. All 7 planets in the Verdant system are gone." Ambassador Groot's wooden form began to wither as he felt his people's pain across the galaxy. "My children," he whispered. Thousands of years of growth, of life, of beauty, all turned to nothing. Captain Do-hyun knew they had to act fast. He gathered his awakened crew in the Dauntless's main briefing room. Engineer Soman stood before a table covered with strange devices that pulsed with blue light. "We need to start sharing the technology immediately," Do-hyun said. "The Coalition fleets won't stand a chance with conventional weapons." "Captain," said Dr. Yuna, "the awakening chambers are ready. We can process 100 humans at a time. But the alien species will need different modifications." Colonel Taehun stepped forward. His enhanced soldiers stood behind him, their glowing eyes reflecting their inner power. "Sir, we've identified 12,000 human volunteers from across the Coalition fleet. They know the risks." "And the alien volunteers?" 300 Zephyrians led by Ambassador Thel. She says she'd rather die trying to evolve than watch her remaining people get consumed. 500 Vextar warriors who want to break their connection to the hive mind, so the Void Swarm can't track them through their thoughts. And surprisingly, Ambassador Groot volunteered along with 50 of his people. Do-hyun nodded. "Begin the process immediately. And Soman, start installing predecessor weapon systems on every Coalition ship that can handle them." The awakening chambers aboard the Dauntless worked day and night. Humans went in as normal people and came out changed, taller, stronger, with glowing eyes and the ability to interface directly with technology that defied physics. Lieutenant Nari was one of the first to complete the process. She had been a good pilot before, but now she could fly her fighter ship by thought alone. The ship responded to her will as if it were part of her body. "It's like dreaming while awake," she told her fellow pilots. "I can see the flow of space-time itself. I can predict where enemies will be before they get there." But the process didn't always work. Commander Jiho volunteered for awakening, but something went wrong. He survived, but only partially. Half his body remained human while the other half glowed with blue energy. He could understand predecessor technology, but couldn't fully control it. "I'm trapped between 2 forms of existence," Jiho told Dr. Yuna. "But I can still fight. Give me a ship and point me at the enemy." The alien awakenings were even more difficult. Ambassador Thel's crystal body had to be completely restructured, her consciousness transferred to a new form made of living light. When she emerged from the chamber, she could phase through solid matter and manipulate energy directly. "I am no longer Zephyrian," she said in a voice that sounded like singing crystals. "But I am still myself, and I can touch the darkness that consumes my people." The Vextar warriors who underwent awakening lost their connection to the hive mind, but gained individual consciousness stronger than any they had known. Ambassador Crix was terrified of the process, but finally agreed when the last Vextar colonies sent their final screams across space. Ambassador Groot's transformation was the most dramatic. His wooden form became something between a tree and a machine, with branches that could reshape themselves into any tool needed. He could now communicate with technology as easily as he once spoke to plants. While the awakenings continued, Engineer Soman worked with Coalition engineers to retrofit their ships with predecessor weapons. The technology was difficult for non-awakened minds to understand, but she found ways to simplify it. "Think of it as evolution for machines," she explained to a group of confused technicians. "The weapons learn how to hurt whatever they're shooting at. The shields adapt to whatever is attacking them." The first field test came when a Void Swarm Scout attacked the mining station at Kepler 442. The Coalition sent 3 upgraded ships with awakened human crews and predecessor weapons. Klelti. Nari led the attack in her modified fighter. As she approached the scout entity, she could see it clearly for the first time. It wasn't really a creature or a machine, it was a whole in reality shaped like a living thing. It consumed light, matter, energy, even the space around it. "Engaging target," Nari reported, her voice calm despite facing something that should not exist. Her ship's weapons fired beams of pure creation, energy that forced matter and space to exist more strongly. When the beams hit the Void entity, it screamed in a way that could be heard across dimensions. "Target is hurt," Nari reported, surprised. "It's retreating." The weapon actually works, but victory came with a price. The void entity scream was heard by larger entities deeper in space. Soon, Coalition sensors detected dozens of bigger creatures heading toward their position. Back at Coalition headquarters, Admiral Keiko received reports from across the galaxy. The situation was getting worse every day. "Admiral," Commander Hana said, reading from her reports, "we've lost contact with 80% of the Outer Rim worlds. The Void Swarm is consuming entire systems faster than we can evacuate them. What about our awakened forces? We now have 15,000 awakened humans and about 1,000 awakened aliens. They're scattered across 50 ships with predecessor weapons." "But Admiral," Hana's voice trailed off, "what is it?" "Long-range sensors have detected the main Void Swarm fleet. It's bigger than we imagined. The entities are so massive they're creating gravitational distortions. Some of them are the size of moons. Others are the size of planets." Captain Do-Yun entered the command center at that moment, his face grave. "Admiral, we need to talk. The predecessor ghosts have shown me what's coming." He activated a holographic display that filled the room with an image of space near the galaxy's edge. What everyone saw made them fall silent with horror. The Void Swarm's main fleet looked like a cancer spreading across the stars. Thousands of entities, each one capable of consuming entire worlds, moved in perfect formation toward the galactic center. Behind them came even larger creatures, beings so huge they dwarfed entire solar systems. "At their current speed," Do-Hyun said quietly, "they'll reach the core worlds in 4 months. Earth, the coalition capital, all the major population centers, everything will be consumed. How many awakened do we need to stop them?" Admiral Keiko asked. "All of them," Do-Hyun replied. "Every human, every alien who can survive the process. And even then, we'll need perfect coordination and a lot of luck." Outside the station's windows, another star went dark as the Void Swarm's advanced scouts continued their terrible harvest. The race to save the galaxy had begun, and time was running out fast. The emergency meeting room was packed with leaders from across the galaxy. Admiral Keiko sat at the head of the table, with Captain Do-Hyun on her right. The alien ambassadors filled the other seats, their different forms creating a strange mix of colors, shapes, and sounds. "Tell us everything," Admiral Keiko said to Captain Do-Hyun. "What really happened to you out there?" Do-Hyun stood up and activated a small device. The air above the table filled with images that made everyone gasp. They saw cities floating in space made of materials that seemed to be alive. Strange beings with bodies of pure energy moved through halls that defied physics. 15 years ago, our expedition reached the edge of known space, Do-Hyun began. "We found something that our scientists called a dimensional rift. Before we could study it, our ship was pulled through into another reality." Dr. Yuna stepped forward. She looked young, but her eyes held the wisdom of someone who had seen impossible things. "In that dimension, time works differently. What felt like months to us was actually 15 years in our reality. We found ourselves on a world that should not exist. The images changed to show a planet covered in crystal towers and metal trees. Beings made of light walked among ruins that stretched to the horizon. "The predecessors," whispered Ambassador Thel. Her crystal body flickered with amazement. "Yes," Do-Hyun said, "but not as you might expect. The predecessors were not just one species. They were many species who had evolved beyond physical form. They had become beings of pure consciousness, able to shape matter and energy with their thoughts." Engineer Soman activated another device. Her small hands moved over controls that seemed to respond to her thoughts. "They taught us their history. Millions of years ago, they ruled not just our galaxy, but hundreds of galaxies. They had achieved perfect harmony between technology and consciousness. Then what destroyed them?" asked Ambassador Groot, his wooden voice full of worry. The images in the air changed to show something horrible. It was darkness, but not normal darkness. This was darkness that moved and consumed everything it touched. Stars died when it passed by them. Planets turned to dust. Even space itself seemed to crumble. "The Void Swarm," Captain Do-Hyun said quietly. "Entities of pure entropy. They exist to unmake reality itself. They consumed galaxy after galaxy, turning everything back into nothingness." Colonel Tae-hoon stood up. He was taller than he had been 15 years ago, and his eyes glowed with blue light. The predecessors fought them for millions of years. They created weapons that could reshape reality. They built fleets that could move faster than thought. Nothing worked. "How did any predecessors survive?" Admiral Keiko asked. "They found a way to hide between dimensions," Dr. Yuna explained. "But the cost was enormous. They had to give up their physical forms completely. They became ghosts, waiting for someone who could carry on their mission. Ambassador Crix buzzed angrily. Why humans? Why not our species? The Vextar have shared consciousness. We could have learned their technology. Soman shook her head. It's not about intelligence or technology. It's about genetics. The predecessors planted seeds in many species millions of years ago, but only human DNA contained the right combination to awaken their dormant programs. You're saying humans are part predecessor? Ambassador Jinwoo asked in shock. We're saying humans have the potential to become what the predecessors once were, Do-hyun replied. But the awakening process is dangerous. Many of our crew didn't survive it. The images showed the interior of the Dauntless from 15 years ago. Humans were lying on tables surrounded by machines made of crystal and light. Some of them screamed as their bodies changed. Others simply stopped breathing. Out of 50,000 crew members, only 30,000 survived the awakening, Tae-hoon said grimly. But those who did survive gained abilities beyond imagination. To demonstrate, Sergeant Kwan walked to the wall of the conference room. He placed his hand against the metal surface and concentrated. The metal began to flow like water, reshaping itself into a perfect sculpture of a flower. The alien ambassadors made sounds of fear and amazement. Ambassador Thel's crystal body flashed with warning colors. This power, it's too dangerous. You could reshape our worlds, our bodies, our very reality, which is exactly what we need to fight the Void Swarm, Dr. Yuna said. Normal weapons, normal shields, normal technology, none of it can touch them. They exist partially outside our reality. Only predecessor technology can harm them? Admiral Keiko leaned forward. Show us proof. Show us these Void Swarm entities. Captain Do-hyun nodded to Soman, who activated the long-range sensors. The main screen filled with an image that made everyone in the room go silent. It showed the edge of their galaxy, where the first stars were beginning to fade. But they weren't just dying. They were being consumed by something that looked like living shadow. The darkness moved with purpose, reaching out with tentacles of nothingness that erased everything they touched. The scouts arrived 3 days ago, Do-hyun said. They're testing our defenses, learning about our technology. The main invasion fleet is still months away, but when it arrives, it will cover light years of space. How many of them are there? Asked Ambassador Groot. In the last galaxy they consumed, our sensors detected over 1 billion individual entities, Tae-hoon replied. Each one capable of destroying a planet. The room fell silent as everyone tried to understand the scale of the threat. Finally, Ambassador Crix spoke up, his clicking voice full of fear. What do you propose we do? We awaken more humans, Do-hyun said simply. As many as possible, as quickly as possible. We share predecessor technology with the coalition fleets, and we prepare for a war that will determine whether life continues to exist in this galaxy. And if the awakening process kills half the humans you try it on, Admiral Keiko asked. Then we'll have tried, Do-hyun replied. Because the alternative is that everything dies. Dr. Yuna stepped forward again. Admiral, we've learned to make the process safer. We can't eliminate all risk, but we can reduce it. And we've discovered something else. The awakening isn't limited to humans. This caused an uproar among the alien ambassadors. Ambassador Thel's crystal body blazed with shocked light. You're saying you could change us too? The predecessor genetic programs can adapt to any intelligent species, Yuna explained. But the changes would be significant. You would become something more than what you are now. Or something less, Ambassador Groot said grimly. Suddenly, alarms began ringing throughout the station. Communications Officer Park's voice echoed from the speakers. Admiral, emergency contact from the outer colonies. The Rigel system is under attack. We're receiving distress calls from 12 planets simultaneously. The main screen changed to show incoming messages from across the galaxy. Voices screamed in terror as they described impossible things. Darkness that ate light, creatures that existed partially outside reality, and weapons that simply erased matter from existence. It's starting, Captain Do-hyun said quietly. The Void Swarm isn't waiting for their main fleet. They're beginning the consumption now. Admiral Keiko stood up, her face grim with determination. Captain, how long do we have? If they follow their usual pattern, they'll consume the outer rim worlds first, then work their way toward the galactic center. At their current rate of expansion, they'll reach Earth and the other core worlds in 6 months. Then we don't have time for debates, Keiko said, looking around the room at all the alien ambassadors. We need to make a choice right now. Do we trust the humans and try their awakening process? Or do we face extinction with conventional weapons? The alien leaders looked at each other with fear and uncertainty. Outside the station's windows, the first stars began to go dark as the Void Swarm's advanced scouts reached the outer galaxy. The fate of every living thing in the Milky Way now hung in the balance of their decision. The UES Dauntless moved through space like a metal mountain. As it came closer to the Coalition's main space station, everyone could see how much it had changed. The ship's hull was covered with blue and silver lines that pulsed like a heartbeat. Where there used to be simple human weapons, now there were strange devices that hummed with unknown energy. Captain Do-hyun stood on the bridge of his ship, looking out at the Coalition fleet that had gathered to meet them. He looked the same as he had 15 years ago, which should have been impossible. His hair was still black, his face still young, and his eyes still sharp. "Captain," said Engineer Soman from her station, "the Coalition ships are trying to scan us. Should I block their sensors?" "Let them look," Do-hyun replied. "They need to understand what we've become." Soman nodded. She was small and quiet, but she now understood technology that could reshape matter itself. Her hands moved over controls that glowed with their own light, controls that had not existed when they left 15 years ago. On the Coalition station, Admiral Keiko watched the readings from her fleet's sensors. Nothing made sense. The Dauntless was showing energy levels that should have torn the ship apart. Its shields were absorbing scanning beams like they were gentle sunlight. "Admiral," Commander Hana said, her voice tight with worry, "our weapon systems can't get a targeting lock. It's like their ship exists in a different kind of space than ours." Through the communication system, Captain Do-hyun's voice spoke to the entire Coalition fleet. "Coalition vessels, this is the Dauntless. We know you have questions. We will answer them all. But first, we need to dock and meet with your leaders." "Time is running short. Time for what?" Admiral Keiko asked into her microphone. "Time to prepare for war, Admiral. A war unlike anything this galaxy has ever seen." The alien ambassadors were not happy. Ambassador Crix of the Vextar species buzzed angrily, his insect-like body clicking with agitation. The Vextar shared thoughts with each other across space, and all of them were afraid. "The humans have been hiding advanced technology," Crix said in his strange, clicking voice. "This violates all Coalition agreements. They could destroy us all with that ship." Ambassador Thel of the Zephyrians glowed with worried colors. Her crystal body reflected light in patterns that showed her emotions. "The energy readings from their vessel are beyond our understanding. How did they develop such power in secret?" Ambassador Groot of the Thornari swayed like a tree in wind, his wooden face creased with concern. "My people sense something unnatural about that ship. It feels wrong, like it doesn't belong in our reality." Ambassador Jinwoo tried to calm them down. "Please, honored ambassadors, we must wait to hear their explanation. Captain Do-hyun was always an honest man. Honest men don't disappear for 15 years and return with impossible technology." Crix buzzed angrily. As the Dauntless came closer to the station, more details became visible. The fighter ships flying around it moved in perfect formation, but their pilots seemed to move their craft by thought rather than controls. The ships curved and spun through space in ways that would crush normal human pilots. Marine Colonel Tae-hoon walked through the corridors of the Dauntless, checking on his soldiers. They had once been normal human Marines, but now they were something more. They were taller, stronger, and their eyes glowed with a soft blue light. They could move faster than human eyes could follow, and their reflexes were perfect. "Colonel," said Sergeant Kwan, falling into step beside him. Kwan had been a good soldier before, but now he could sense the thoughts and feelings of his fellow Marines. It helped them fight as one unit, like the Vextar, but still individual. "The Coalition forces are scared of us," Kwan said. "I can feel their fear even from here." "Good," Tae-hoon replied. "Fear will keep them from doing something stupid while we try to explain." The Dauntless finally reached the docking bay of the Coalition station. But instead of using the normal docking arms, the ship simply phased through the station's shields like they weren't there. Then it solidified again, perfectly positioned in the bay. On the station, alarms rang everywhere. The impossible docking had broken every rule of physics that the Coalition understood. "How did they do that?" Hana asked, staring at her instruments. "I don't know," Admiral Keiko replied. "But we're about to find out." Captain Do-hyun led a small group off his ship and into the station. Besides him walked Engineer Soman, Colonel Tae-hoon, and Dr. Yuna, who had become their expert on the ancient technology they now used. The coalition leaders waited in the main conference room. As the humans entered, everyone could see that they had changed. They moved with perfect grace. Their eyes held knowledge that seemed too deep for normal humans, and they seemed to glow slightly with their own inner light. "Admiral Keiko," Captain Doyun said, bowing slightly, "thank you for allowing us to return." "Captain Doyun," Keiko replied carefully, "you and your crew were declared dead 15 years ago. Where have you been?" "We were not in this dimension," Dohyun answered simply. "We were transported to a place between realities where time moves differently. There we met the last survivors of the predecessor civilization." The alien ambassadors made sounds of disbelief. Ambassador Crix's clicking became loud and angry. "Impossible. The predecessors died millions of years ago." "Not all of them," Dr. Yuna said, stepping forward. She was young, but her eyes held ancient wisdom. "Some survived in the space between dimensions. They have been waiting for someone who could carry on their mission." "What mission?" Admiral Keiko asked. "To stop the thing that destroyed their civilization," Captain Dohyun said. "An entity of pure destruction that consumes entire galaxies. It destroyed the predecessor's empire across 1,000,000 worlds, and now it's coming here." Colonel Taehoon activated a device on his arm. The air above the conference table filled with images of space, but space that was wrong. Instead of stars, there was only darkness that seemed to eat light itself. "This is what remains of the Andromeda Galaxy," Taehoon said. "The void swarm consumed it completely last year. Now they're heading for the Milky Way." "That's impossible," Ambassador Thel said, her crystal body flickering with fear colors. "Nothing could destroy an entire galaxy." "The predecessors thought the same thing," Soman said quietly. "They were wrong. Just like we will be wrong if we don't prepare." "Why should we trust you?" Ambassador Groot demanded, his wooden voice creaking with anger. "You return with impossible powers and expect us to believe your stories?" Captain Dohyun looked at each of them in turn. "Because," he said, "we are still human. We still care about protecting life. And we are the only ones who can interface with predecessor technology. Without us, everyone in this galaxy will die." Suddenly, every screen in the room lit up with emergency signals. Communications Officer Park's voice echoed through the speakers. "Admiral, we're detecting massive spatial distortions at the galaxy's edge. Something huge is coming through hyperspace. Multiple contacts. Hundreds of them. Thousands." Admiral Keiko felt her heart sink. She looked at Captain Doyun, who nodded grimly. "They're here," he said. "The first wave of scouts. The real invasion begins now." Outside the station's windows, the stars began to flicker and dim as something dark and hungry moved between them. The alarm bells rang through the deep space monitoring station like angry metal birds. Admiral Keiko rushed from her quarters, her boots hitting the cold floor with sharp sounds. The hallways were full of running people, all heading to the command center. "What's happening?" Keiko asked as she entered the busy room full of screens and blinking lights. Dr. Minho looked up from his computer. His face was pale and confused. "Admiral, we're getting a signal from Sector 7. But that's impossible." "Why is it impossible?" Keiko walked over to look at his screen. "Because the signal is coming from the UES Dauntless." Keiko felt her blood turn cold. The Dauntless was the biggest and strongest ship humans had ever built. It was a supercarrier that could hold 1,000 fighter ships and had weapons that could destroy planets. But the Dauntless had disappeared 15 years ago. "That can't be right," Keiko said. "The Dauntless was lost in the Outer Rim expedition. Everyone on board died." "That's what we thought," Minho said. He pushed some buttons and the main screen showed numbers and letters. "But this is definitely their signal code. And Admiral, there's more. The message is encrypted with codes that only the Dauntless crew would know." Commander Hana ran into the room. She was young but very smart about fighting in space. "Admiral, our long-range sensors are picking up something big coming this way. It's moving faster than anything we've ever seen." Keiko felt her heart beating fast. She had been the admiral in charge of all human ships in the Galactic Coalition for 10 years. She had fought against space pirates and alien invaders, but nothing had prepared her for this. "Can you break the encryption?" she asked Minho. "I'm trying, but it's very complex. Wait." Minho's fingers moved quickly on his keyboard. "I'm getting something. It says, 'This is Captain Doyun of the UES Dauntless. We are returning home. Prepare for immediate conference with coalition leadership. What we bring changes everything. Captain Dohyun is alive.'" Keiko couldn't believe it. She had known Do-hyun before he left on the expedition. He was brave and smart, but also stubborn. Many people thought he was dead. There's more, Minho said. The signal includes crew manifest data. According to this, all 50,000 crew members are still alive. Hana shook her head. That's impossible. Even if they survived, they would be 15 years older now. Some would have died from old age. The door opened and Ambassador Jinwoo walked in. He was the human representative who talked to all the alien species in the coalition. He looked worried. Admiral, the alien ambassadors are asking questions, Jinwoo said. The Vextar hive mind detected the signal too. They want to know why humans are hiding military assets. Keiko rubbed her forehead. The Galactic Coalition was made up of many different alien species. The Vextar looked like giant bugs and could share thoughts with each other. The Zephyrians were made of living crystal and could live for thousands of years. The Thornari were like walking trees that could control plants. All these aliens had agreed to work together with humans for peace in the galaxy, but they had never fully trusted humans. Especially after the Dauntless disappeared. Many aliens thought humans were too aggressive and dangerous. What should I tell them? Jinwoo asked. Tell them the truth, Keiko said. We don't know what's happening either. Suddenly, all the screens in the room started flashing red. A loud warning sound filled the air. Admiral! Hana shouted over the noise. Long-range sensors have detected a massive object dropping out of hyperspace. It's huge. Bigger than anything in our fleet. Where is it? Keiko demanded. It just appeared at the edge of our solar system. And Admiral? Hana's voice became quiet. The computer confirms it's the UES Dauntless. Everyone in the room became silent. The Dauntless had been the pride of the human fleet. It was so big that it could carry entire armies. Its weapons were powerful enough to destroy moons, but it had been built with old technology from 15 years ago. Get me a visual, Keiko ordered. The main screen changed to show space. At first there was nothing but stars. Then slowly a shape appeared. It was definitely a ship, but it looked wrong somehow. Zoom in, Keiko said. The image got bigger and everyone gasped. The ship was definitely the Dauntless, but it had changed. The metal hull was covered with strange patterns that seemed to glow with their own light. Parts of the ship looked different, like someone had rebuilt them with technology that didn't exist 15 years ago. Admiral, Minho said in a quiet voice, I'm detecting energy readings that don't match any known human technology. In fact, they don't match any known technology at all. Are they hostile? Hana asked, her hand moving toward the weapons controls. Unknown, Minho replied, but the energy levels are incredible. This ship could destroy our entire fleet without taking any damage. Keiko stared at the image on the screen. The Dauntless hung in space like a sleeping giant. She could see fighter ships flying around it, but they moved in ways that seemed impossible. They curved and twisted through space like living things instead of machines. Admiral, the communication officer called out, we're receiving another message from the Dauntless. Put it through. A man's voice filled the room. It was older and more tired than Keiko remembered, but she recognized it immediately. This is Captain Do-hyun of the UES Dauntless to Galactic Coalition Command. We request immediate permission to dock at the main station. We have urgent information about a threat to all life in the galaxy. The enemy that destroyed the predecessors is coming, and we are the only ones who can stop them. The message ended and the room fell silent again. Everyone looked at each other with fear and confusion. The predecessors? Jinwoo whispered. But they disappeared millions of years ago. They're just legends. Keiko felt a cold fear growing in her stomach. The predecessors were supposed to be an ancient race that once ruled the galaxy. No one knew what happened to them, but they had left behind ruins on dead planets across the galaxy. Admiral, Hana said, what are your orders? Keiko looked at the screen showing the impossible ship floating in space. Whatever had happened to the Dauntless and its crew in the last 15 years, they were no longer the same humans who had left, but they were still her people. Grant them permission to dock, she said finally, and call an emergency meeting of the Coalition Council. Something tells me our galaxy is about to change forever. Outside the window, the stars seemed to flicker, as if something dark was moving between them.